Hey there, and welcome to the Think Fitness Life podcast. We're fueled by the incredible clients who inspire us every day, allowing us to elevate their health and fitness journeys. On this show, you'll gain valuable insights from top professionals, hear inspiring transformation stories, and discover the knowledge and motivation to create your own best life. Let's dive in. As someone who has continuously used therapy as a way to heal and elevate my personal performance, I know wholeheartedly that you cannot always read the label when you're in the jar. And that's why it's so helpful to have a professional in your corner to talk to. This podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp to provide our listeners with the opportunity to work with a licensed therapist from the comfort of your own home. Receive 10% off your first month when you sign up by going to betterhelp.com/TFL. That's betterhelp.com/T as in think, F as in fitness, L as in life. And remember, you're not alone. There are people out there who can help.
Welcome back to the Think Fitness Life podcast. Today's episode, we are going to dive into the importance of sprint training when it comes to training for long distance running or to help biomechanically repattern your gait. Most runners, when they come into looking at how to approach an injury or just approach getting better, we see them miss one big thing, and that is speed work and is sprint work. Now, many long distance runners or runners in general will always give me pushback as a coach and saying, well, why do I need to train sprint? Why do I need to train for speed work or sprint mechanics if I'm not really running long distance? Which is a great question, and one that I always seem to find myself baffled because I would assume that most people are starting off their young athletic careers or just in general as kids learning how to accelerate and sprint. That might be the case, and then they get into longer distance running and they go by base level programming, which is fine. I don't expect a lot of runners to get into high level programming and periodization off the bat, but they do miss the aspect of speed training and sprint training for the one goal of how do I improve my either mile time, 2 mile time, half marathon, 5K, 10K, or ultra marathon pace, which I totally respect. But let's pull that shade back and let's pull it back a little bit for two different reasons. Number one, we're going to talk about injuries and how sprint training can really lead into optimizing your biomechanics, optimizing energy efficiency, optimizing neural efficiency, motor patterning, and metabolic efficiency. Those are the big keys, especially when it comes to running economy, that we want to influence as runners, as athletes, as just your general population, just as anyone who's looking to be able to increase efficiency of the human body. Where we really go at the beginning for sprint training is just learning how to accelerate. When we get a lot of injured runners coming into our clinic, we see a very common pattern that the mechanics of running are off, the timing is off, and the forces that are applied through the body are overdriven in certain areas, either causing overuse injuries, acute traumas such as fractures, stress reactions, or just overall pain in certain areas of the body. Most of the time, we see it is going to be front side mechanics on the lower half, your hip flexors, your quads, your knees, your anterior tibialis, and then sometimes in conjunction with that, we will see the posterior side, the lower back start to take over, and it's a very common pattern of forward propulsion that people are trying to run with. And in this episode, you are going to hear me say the word propulsion many times. That is going to be referenced into push-off, running through the full Propulsion is force production and then into push-off. So you'll either be early propulsion, which is heel strike, mid propulsion, which is mid stance, late propulsion, or max propulsion. You're going to get, or we'll see max propulsion, we're producing a lot of force, and then late propulsion to almost push-off. If you do hear that throughout the episode, know that we're referencing forward movement, especially when it's coming to running. I will try not to really use the word gait when it comes to running. I think propulsion is a little bit better, or just running, where gait could be used as running, but some people see it as walking. I don't want those two things to get confused. How we get thrown into these injury patterns, a lot of the time is because of our running economy. Is number one, neuroefficiency, number two, biomechanical efficiency. And it influences motor programming when it comes to when those two, they influence motor programming. And when that is off, the metabolic efficiency can get thrown off. But we're not really going to talk about metabolic efficiency really until the end, where it's going to get geared more towards programming when it comes to running. The big thing is going to be neuroefficiency and biomechanics, and those two are going to be tied together based on where the body is in space, where the body is when the heel strikes and we make initial contact, where the body is when we are in mid stance, when we're in late stance or late propulsion, and where the body is in swing phase. But really, it is going to be that early mid stance that's going to set us up for the appropriate late phase, late propulsion push-off. I really don't talk much about push-off as much as we're going to talk about how to get to push-off, because push-off is a result of a lot of different processes going through the body when the foot hits the ground, and we're going through to load to be able to produce force and then to drive off in that spring-like manner. But if we get to push-off too early or prematurely, causes a problem. Just as if we get to mid-stance prematurely or early heel strike prematurely, it's going to cause problems too. And that's where we're going to see the neuroefficiency and biomechanical efficiency really get bogged down. What you'll see when you put someone on treadmill or you watch gait, and this is going to be more your long distance runners, your cross-country athletes, your 800 meter plus athletes, all the way up to ultra marathon athletes. And I'm going to take it down kind of at 800, because the 200 to 400, really, we're still looking at sprint mechanics in that point. The 800 starts to get into different kind of mechanics. You are still doing speed work. You are still sprinting in 800, but you'll see the mechanisms change just a little bit. Anything over 800, we're going to consider long distance. Mainly, you'll see a heel strike or rear foot initial contact first, and that's going to lead to a more of a braking position from the front side of the body, the anterior tibialis, the quads, the hip flexors, if the body is not in the position over top. Now, if you're at a heel strike and you're hitting and your upper body is over the ankle and over the heel, you'll be fine. And if you don't have any injury or don't have any pain when it comes to running, yeah, you can get your gait looked at to be a little bit more biomechanically efficient, but it might not be something that you have to necessarily change. And we'll get into why sprint training will help change that subconsciously without you having to actually think about putting your foot differently on the ground. We get that heel strike, and then we start getting front side mechanics to either pull us forward and break us at the same time. Everyone's kind of heard of shin splints, stress reactions, medial tibial stress syndrome, still shin splints. You're going to hear me say shin splints a lot, and that's going to cover the basis of stress reactions through the shins. Those muscles are bracing hard and splinting. The bones, the force can be controlled. Then it will pull on the bone and causes reactions. When you do hear me say shin splints, it can lead to a plethora of issues that can stem from it if not overtreated. Just know that that's kind of entangled within one. If I don't say medial tibial stress syndrome, shin splints is going to take its place. And if you are not having any shin issues, you could kind of go up. If you have knee issues when running, the quads are trying to decelerate the knee. And that can pull on the quad tendon, it can pull on the patella tendon, and it can really kind of drive a lot of knee pain as the tib fib, the muscles below, or the two bones below the knee are getting pulled forward by that anterior tibialis, that shin muscle. The quad needs to now kind of hold that back and brace that knee on impact from, first of all, flexing more. It's holding off flexion, and it is going to be extending when we get through. It's going from a flex state, it's halting flexion, it's really catching all the force going forward. And if you don't have position at the pelvis, those tendons, quad tendon, patellar tendon, quad muscles can take a beating when it comes to impact and loading of force. Then if you keep going up the chain, the hip flexors can play a role. If the pelvis is out of position, that means biomechanically our efficiency is, we are out of position through the upper torso and the hips, that the hip flexors are now trying to pull our body forward, i.e. pull the spine forward as the femur's going forward to get the body to time up. As you can see, when we're talking about this whole situation, it's never about training just a muscle or stretching a muscle or looking at one specific part of the body. It is a neuroefficiency timing issue that needs to be remapped in the body. That's where sprinting comes in. Now, on the other side, if you're just your average athlete with no pain, now on the other side, if you're a person who's running with no pain, you're still going to benefit from sprint training because it's going to help your running economy. It's going to make you stronger through the stretch shortening cycle. It's going to make you more spring loaded. It can help reposition where your foot is going to be on the ground to enhance overall efficiency and to make you stronger and faster. Now, as we get into why sprint training does that, because most people are like, well, isn't sprint training just running? Well, it is, but it's gone at a faster pace. And when you get into a faster speed, the body's mechanics change. And we're not looking for the long distance runner to become a sprint athlete in mechanisms. What it looks like, it shouldn't look like a sprinter, but we give them dosages of sprint training to help retrain their system if injured, or to retrain their system to get more power or more force if they're not injured. Either way, we are training for more efficiency, improved running economy, which will then improve metabolic efficiency. When you go on your longer runs, your body's not working as hard to fight poor position, to fight poor forces. It can now push longer, push harder through certain phases. Metabolism is going to switch, and your body's going to have more energy to put more towards speed, endurance, and all the other things that help you get to the end of the race, to win the race, and to be efficient and to be fast. And that's the end goal when we're looking at any runners. Why sprint training? Over the years, my model has really changed when it has come to gait retraining and retraining runners. At first, I very much thought it was a strength issue through the muscle system. And I looked at it as any strength coach would. Okay, this person needs to get stronger. Let's do squats. Let's do deadlifts. Let's do split squats, lunges, single leg deadlifts, and strength training exercises, which I don't think is bad. But I realized over time that it was going to take too long to kind of create that adaptation change. And I don't mean that in a bad way, but usually we would see runners for 10 sessions. Give or take, if that's 5 to 10 weeks, depending on frequency of how often they came in. And the end goal for all runners was I need to get back to running, and I want to get back to a season. I kind of took a step back and said, if I'm doing all of this strength training work to build the system, to repattern it, but I wasn't really touching any running mechanics or running abilities, maybe until 2 or 3 sessions in, I started finding that I started thinking, was I wasting time from a motor standpoint? Was I wasting efficiency when it came to, am I actually creating the pattern change for this individual? As I look back over the programs I've created and the models I made, there was one big thing that stood out, and it was I wasn't doing the things early enough. And this is where I think a lot of coaches are a little too conservative in the fact that they want to put someone into some prehab exercises or some strength training exercises and slowly progress them, which I totally understand. But unfortunately, that's not how the world works. We get a lot of college kids, college and high school athletes, that they might come in wintertime and they are looking to get back to running. Doesn't matter what sport. A lot of track kids. We work with a lot of track kids, a lot of field athletes. They need to get back for spring sports. And sometimes for us, that is, we have maybe 6 to 8 weeks to work with them. We have a 6 to 8 week window to get them to be more efficient and to get them to be able to play their sport. And that's where I'm looking and say, okay, this model needs to change. We need to get to sprinting mechanics a lot earlier. Let's go back and look at what actually does this person need and what does sprint training really entail. What I found with most people, especially when you're dealing with a front side mechanic issue or front side overuse like shin splints or quad or knee issues, get them strong through the gait cycle positions first. This is where I use a lot of my PRI exercise off the get-go to remap and retrain and give them a sense of the muscles working, side lying, supine, and of course upright. And this can be done in the first 10 minutes of the session. Where I then started to change things was say, I'm going to hold off on strength training. Yes, someone needs to get stronger, but does that necessarily mean that I have to actually go and put weights in their hands, a bar on their back, and all that stuff? And I said, no, we're going to get them stronger through training positions of sprint mechanics. And one big thing I've come to my motto is getting the heel off of the ground as early as possible to train someone's system to get strong in the positions of max propulsion, late propulsion, almost biasing mid stance to push off. What I'm doing, because most of these athletes that are coming in who are injured, they're very much an overstrider and a heel striker first. And if you're one of those athletes or runners out there that do heel strike first and have had injuries in the past, but might not have them now, this is what you're going to want to pay attention to. Or if you never had injuries and you notice that you're a heel striker, this is how you're going to be able to get faster and improve running economy. If we are a heel striker, we are going to lose our stretch shortening cycle, which means we are going to produce less force off the ground to be able to push forward. When we lose that elasticity, we lose that spring, we're going to become less efficient when it comes to running economy. Our braking forces of slowing ourselves down is going to go up. Therefore, our metabolic efficiency, our body is going to work harder to try to stop ourselves from going forward too fast, because when the heel strikes first, we can get into premature pronation where the foot and the body is out in front and it has to adapt from the lower leg portion. It has to adapt from the foot, the ankle, the shin, the knee, the femur, and the hip. And that's got to adapt before the upper body because of where it is in space. If the lower body is in front of the upper body, there's a timing issue. There's a delay. We lose all this efficiency. VO2 max efficiency will go down over time because we are just losing power and bleeding power because we're not being powerful. Circle back. This is where it comes in. Get the heels off the ground ASAP in a training session. After my PRI warm-up, PRI activation, we're getting into sprint mechanic positions and isometrics that pull the heel off the ground. And at first, I like to get a good sense of a high heel. You're keeping the ball of the foot down and the big toe down and lifting a heel up and holding. And you're going to get a lot of calf. If you're looking up this exercise, go look up Cal Dietz, spring ankle. This is what I'm going to next. This is what we're going to use. Then we're going to go through a lot of hip extension exercises, slow controlled exercises that are going to build the strength while the heel is elevated. And what you'll notice is if you're doing it on yourself or you're training another runner, when they lift the heel and try to drive the hips forward in hip extension, you might see their heel drop back to the ground. And when we see that heel drop back to the ground, I now know that I'm losing power. There's a power leak in the system. I'm going to put more strain on the Achilles because the gastroc, soleus, and Achilles aren't actually acting in that spring motion to drive forward. It's trying to drop back and down to put a full foot down to understand what force is. That's my biggest thing that I'll see in certain exercises. We're keeping the heel up the whole time. Heel drives up, hips drive forward. Keep that up and keep that working with the quad and the glute above with a gastroc. And there's a big recipe there. That's the recipe for the method to improve gait mechanics, sprint mechanics, because you're now putting them in a mid stance, late mid stance, early max propulsion position because their heel's off. And in sprinting, because you're turning the legs over fast and you're running at a high velocity, the heel's never going to hit the ground. You're really hitting the midfoot and forefoot to push off. And that's what we're teaching the body in these positions is heels are elevated. We're teaching a whole new sense of you don't have an early stance. You have a mid stance, max push off, and then you're in flight phase. Go back earlier when we talked about heel strike and injured runners because their patterns are overstriding. You take that away from them. And what I found doing that is people who have come in with shin pain, they don't have any pain when it comes to that. Because if the gastroc is on and facilitated, there's no way that the shin can work. Now going above, if you have quad or patella issues and you still feel that, look at the pelvis. If the pelvis is still in an anterior pelvic tilt and too flexed, tuck that. Posterior pelvic tilt, find the glutes in the position, stack the pelvis and the ankle over each other. Quad pain will go away because now you're using the quads and glutes together with the gastroc. And that's really, when you look at sprint mechanics, when that leg pushes down and back, and we go to drive forward, hips are going to push forward first, quads are going to help extend the knee, gastrocs are going to help push off the ground. Then and there, we are changing biomechanical efficiency and neuroefficiency in 3 steps. And these exercises can be a lot. There's no specific exercises that I'm going to say that have to be done. I have my specific list. A lot of Yuri's hip extensions in slow positions, wall runs, you're 45 degrees, heel stay up. Look for that heel to stay up the whole time. If it drops, they're losing power and they're trying to shift their hips back. Then I go into pogo series where we're still keeping the heels elevated. We're doing a lot of bounce, A skips, A runs, high knee runs, all with the ball of the foot sensed and the heels elevated. I'm taking them and getting out of this heavy heel dominated phase and teaching their body to create internal rotation or pronation at mid stance a lot earlier than what they're used to. And this is all going to be done in session 1, believe it or not. We're going to get them activated. We're going to get them sensed of the muscles working. We're going to put them in isometrics and slow motions. Then we're going to speed it up into higher velocities and higher speeds. Because at the end of any training session or any return to play, the end goal for that person is getting them upright and getting them into abilities that, if they can do it, that are going to mimic what the real world is, what sport is. Now, what that might look like for a runner, well, if you have shin pain, but There's no boot, there's no cast, and you've been walking around, you're going to walk out of the gym, the weight room, and go upstairs, do all that stuff. You're still going to use all those muscles. If I can get you upright, and also then I can get you into gait mechanics and some sprint mechanics, which we're going to dive into in a second, like how we're really going to retrain the sprint mechanics. It's a win-win because I'm also changing their patterns and we do it. Now, getting into the sprint mechanics of the training model, training session, we went over our mock drills, our A skips, A runs, B skips. We're doing the high knees. I like to call them hybrid high knees, where I'm combining butt kicks. Then I'm increasing 50% speed, 75% speed. We're doing some resisted high knees. This is all to teach that foot to land and push down and back hard through the midfoot and through the toes while the heel stays elevated. My next big heavy hitter that you get to on day one, and I'm a big proponent of this, is sled work. Sled pushes and potentially sled sprints. This is one where a lot of people will be like, wow, I don't know if you should be doing heavy resistance or resisted sled work from initial session. And here's what I'll say to them. I think a sled work is easier than doing a weighted split squat. And it's more beneficial. And here's why. When we're working on a sled, I have two hands supported on a post in front of me. I'm leaning forward and I'm going to be in that mid stance, late mid stance, push off or max propulsion position. And I'm already set up there and I'm supported. I have two hand support. I can lean forward. My body is in no threat that it's going to fall forward. And I'm already mapping the brain saying, we are leaning forward. I don't need your heel to be on the ground. If someone has an overstride or an overstep, or they like to land on their heels, off the bat, I'm taking that away from them. And their brain is supported. Comparing that to a split squat or any double-legged exercise, that's a lot different because now I'm taking less support away from them and I'm giving a heel back to them. Now, I'm not here saying that I hate heels and we shouldn't train with heels down because we do all the time. My just thought is, if I'm giving someone heel down and their brain is already thinking a heel dominant pattern, is that actually helping their running mechanics, their running economy when I go to run them? And in my head, I'm thinking, no, I don't think it is. Yeah, I can get strong in a split squat, but I'm giving that person now more ground. Am I actually making them faster or more efficient, or am I just getting them stronger? Now, some might argue, well, if you get stronger, you'll get faster. And I do agree with that. But it comes back to my 6 to 8 week time frame that I look at and say, well, if I can get this system, this human brain, to be more neuroefficient and biomechanically efficient, I think that for me, that's more important than just getting someone's legs stronger, quads stronger, because I can always do that in the future and I can build on top of it. So I'm very much a pattern, position, neuro, biomechanical person first, and then strength second. That split squat is going out because it's less support and I'm giving them their heel back. When people go to push the sled, you'll find out if they can figure it out off the bat. And most times, if you're a heel striker, you're going to struggle with the sled in the first probably 10 to 20 meter push, however you're going. And the first time we do it, we're not sprinting. We are just pushing it in a march. You could do a sprint if you wanted to. But what you'll see when someone goes to march with the sled is they should have that heel up high. They should hit that midfoot. They should drive hips through an extension. And they should be able to go to the next stride, next step. If they're a heel striker, they're going to try to put their full foot on the ground in front of them, which then means because they're already leaned forward, that foot and leg is going to kind of get stuck in a position where it can't create propulsion because there's no hip on top of it to drive. The foot's too far out in front of the hips, too far underneath the middle of the body. The hips are now too far back, therefore not allowing the hips to drive through, and they struggle through the gait cycle. And I expect that to happen at first. And if that happens, that's a sign that you're going to be just fine, and the sled is going to be a absolute monster of a tool for you to be able to work with to get you into sprint mechanics and strong. We're pushing through, we're driving the hips, we're staying heels up. Within 2 times, someone is going to nail it off the bat, and they're going to be working on driving the knees up and getting into sprint work. After a couple rounds, maybe 4 or 5 sled pushes, now I'm taking that weight off and we're going to go sled sprints. It's the same concept. It is highly supported, forward lean, teaching you how to sprint, but I'm not worried about any deceleration forces that the body's got to try to fight, because it's pushing something weighted in front of it. Automatically, as the person runs, they're going to accelerate, but they'll decelerate at some point because the weight of the sled in front, but also because they don't have to decelerate themselves from a standing position. They can just kind of slow the legs down and the sled will come to a stop. And this tool is huge. Sled sprints, 5 to 10 reps, 10 meters. We're not going for a lot of distance. We're working on pure power and acceleration coming out of a start position. This is where I'm going to get my leg strength and hip extension strength. Really, am I getting the person stronger? Absolutely. I can add some weight. I'm not going to overweight the sled for the sprints, but I get them into a position where now they know how to lean forward to run. Next thing I'm going is resisted runs. I belt them up, put a 25-pound plate behind them, depending on the size of the person, sometimes 10. And I'm going to have them do the same exact thing. We're going to sprint 10 meters, towing something behind them. This will now teach them, they still have to forward lean because there's weight behind them. If they stand too far up, they're just going to come to a stop because that weight is going to just pull them back and stop them. And then they're going to sprint and accelerate and learn how to push hard and down back with, you guessed it, heel elevated and up. Because if they try to get full foot, they're going to stumble and fall forward after 2 steps, or they're going to end up just walking because that foot hits flat and there's no propulsion and force through the ground. And that's the big premise of why we're going to get to why sprint training is really going to help someone out when it comes to long distance running. And then after that, man, we can add upright regular sprints. I love 10-meter sprints. As we get going through the sessions, I like the 10 by 10, 10-meter sprint, walk it back, 10 rounds. We're working that efficiency, and we do this repetitively. Same exercises, we might start adding some more band resistance, some more pogo, some more plyometrics in with that heel elevated, but it all revolves around linear speed going forward for runners. If you're a field athlete and you need to learn to start to cut, of course, we're going to add in some sprint decelerations and all of that stuff. But mainly the mechanisms of getting stronger at sprinting, you're increasing the stretch shortening cycle. You're increasing the power of the spring of the lower body to drive you forward, increase max VO2. You don't have to worry about high braking forces, and your running economy is going to increase, not only from a metabolic standpoint, from a neuroefficiency and biomechanical, in stride length, stride frequency is going to improve without you actually having to think about it. And that's the beauty of it. If you're an 800-meter athlete or above, you do these sprint workouts, and I really 30 to 60 minutes is really all we really need. And then go do your other running stuff. One big thing, we do this with my wife. I do this with my wife all the time. She's a long distance runner. Marathons are her thing, but we do 2 times a week sprint retraining workouts. And we go through those exercises, we do them, and we get better and better from a mechanical standpoint in a sprint mechanics, and it translates over onto the running, whether it's speed work, whether it's threshold work or long work. But where you're really going to see the sprint work come in is your speed work as a runner. If you're going out and doing 200s, well, hell, if it's 50, 100 meter, 200 meter, 300 meter, 400, 500, 600, 800 meter repeats, that speed work, you're going to see that efficiency really grow. And that's the beauty of it, because when you get stronger through neuroefficiency, through the body, you become more efficient overall. You become a better runner. And with this protocol, this method, we found that we get athletes back within 5 weeks. And that's going to sound crazy depending on the injury, but a lot of times it's an overuse injury. We come in 1 to 2 sessions a week. Within 5 weeks, they are already back to getting their base mile done. Now, when I say getting back, I'm not saying they're getting back to competition. They're starting to get back into, hey, I need you to go run. If you are a cross-country athlete, I need you to start building 1 mile, 2 mile, 3 miles. Build that volume back up. I've had athletes where gradually we increase the volume, and then we've been increasing. We take giant jumps. A lot of times they'll recommend, 10% jumps. I found like that really doesn't work. And I've read books where that theory kind of goes out the window because it's all individualized. And I'm fine with that. I've taken big jumps with some athletes. I've taken 200% to 1,000% jumps in volume over weeks, and the athlete was fine. It's really just getting them back into that groove and back into their regular work without pain. And that's the biggest thing. And it can be done. If you are someone out there listening and you're kind of questioning, or you've been running injured for a long time and it's been over 3 months, really, I would highly suggest going to get a gait analysis where someone can video you, and then taking what you heard in this episode about sprint mechanics and about that method and applying it, and see if you can start pulling yourself into back to where you are running within 5 weeks. Because a lot of athletes in their cycles, they got stuff to do and they don't have time to wait, and you can get back. Now, I've always said you do have to test over time. If you are an injured runner, you do all this work, you have to get back to running and test it out at some point. Within those 5 weeks, and this is the big thing why I have people start to really sprint, and maybe after week 2 or 3, if they're no pain, I want them to go on a run, whether it's 1 mile or 2 mile, because I want to see how their body's going to react. And I always say this has to happen, and sometimes I do get pushback from the athletes, and I understand they're a little afraid to run or they're nervous, but when they don't run, and let's say that all of a sudden they're at 5, 6, 7, week 8, and they haven't run yet, and they're like, well, I'm supposed to go back and play, and I'm cleared, I have no pain. Number one, their conditioning levels are way down, and they haven't built up the volume and that base to pull themselves back up and to understand the new mechanics to deal with the forces. I get a little leery saying, well, if you haven't tested it out, we're going to be good. Now, I'm not saying that this sprint protocol is going to prevent every single pain and going to get you out of pain. I'm saying with the athletes I've had, a high success rate of getting out of pain, but I'm doing it with a very keen coach's eye. And we're also making sure that they're doing all the things and doing it if I'm not seeing them. It's not just a once a week thing and they're good. You got to do this, put the work in 2-3 times a week, do the exercises at home, do them on your own, getting your running program built around it, and then continuing, because that is going to be huge when it comes to returning to running, returning to sport. A lot of people don't test. They go out and they get crushed by the volume, or they go out and they go back to, let's say, their regular speed, regular pace. It comes back a little bit and eventually it goes away. You kind of want to see where your body's gonna be adapted to after 4 to 5 weeks of a sprint training program to see if it worked. And most people will feel a difference in speed, but that's why I like to incorporate after week 2. If you feel good, start building up, get back to a mile, get nice and low. If you're an 800 meter runner, start with 400 at a lesser tempo. Start with 400 at a different pace. We're not going out hitting race speed, race pace off the bat. And I think people make that mistake. They go out and they go, oh, I'm cleared to run. I'm going to go hit it hard. I'm going to go do a threshold work or a race pace work, and their body's not ready for that new adaptation. from a volume standpoint, and they might go back. They might be fine. It's individual. I don't suggest going out and doing high volume off the bat, but definitely building up over time. 1 mile, see how it goes. Then go to 3 miles, 5 miles. After 5, I kind of like to push it up to 8. And then once we're at 8 and someone's really good, then I'm like, all right, let's go up to 10 plus. And then people are going to start accumulating volume throughout the week, back to your 30 to 50 miles a week, and we're back to competing, back at it. Another return to run thing that I've seen with some people is they'll do 1 mile, 1 mile, 1 mile, 1 mile consecutive days, and it feels fine. That's okay, but you really need to increase the duration and frequency over time just to be able to test it. Some people will be like, well, I just did a mile and I just did a mile and I stopped. I'm going to do another a mile, and I'll have that conversation with them saying, hey, I need you to go to 3 miles. I need some feedback of when you start getting more volume in. Sometimes they'll do it. Sometimes they won't. If they don't do it, usually it's like, why aren't you doing it? And it's more of like, hey, let's get you to get to 3 miles. Like, it's got to be progressive rather than just, 1 mile, 1 mile, 1 mile. I think a lot of people think if they just do a mile and it's fine, they can stop and do another one, but they're little, like, they don't know how overload progression works. You got to build the system. And that's what we're here as coaches to help really instill is overload progressions, no matter what. Sprint training, your long distance, got to build back to be able to handle, because if you're going to do a marathon, somehow we have to get you back to 26.2 miles. If you're going to do cross country, I have to get you back to a 5K. And if you're not ready for a 5K and the season starts, and coach has you go out and run in 5Ks and 10Ks, you might get crushed. It's always setting that system up for what it needs, the needs prior to the season starting. And that's all about programming and periodization and being smart when it comes to running and building that conditioning before your season starts. That wraps us up for today. Sprint work. If you are interested for injured runners, for runners, especially long distance runners, to improve, and obviously if you're a sprinter, you're doing sprint work no matter what, a lot of this stuff should look very familiar. If you are interested in something like this, I do a lot of in-person stuff. You can find me at the McKaylee Center. Go to themckayleycenter.com. If you're interested in a session, go to there. If you're interested in online speed work or sprint work, hit us up at thinkfitnesslife.com. You can check us out there. And as always, we're going to stay strong on a program. We're going to be consistent. We're going to do the things. We're going to become neuro efficient, biomechanically efficient, and metabolically efficient.
Matt Gluckman and Eric Menchie here from Think Fitness Life. Our entire careers have been dedicated to fitness, particularly how the mind helps the body. We've been around gyms and nutrition strategies for 25 plus years collectively, and nothing harms or helps better than your own mind, untrained or trained. Pushing beyond your limits, overcoming whatever's thrown your way, and making the decision to show up day in and day out as a lifestyle takes more soul than sand. And what I mean by that is when you can get your mindset and heart leading you consistently in the direction of your goals and dreams, well, it's just a matter of time before you have the performance, physique, or quality of life you're yearning for. See, your thoughts will stem from your beliefs, which will then lead you to action, which develop into your behavior and ultimately lead you to results. It's really that simple. Our process takes time and it takes open communication. It's amazing what pops up along the fitness journey to betterment, and we can be there every step of the way. To learn more or apply for coaching, visit www.thinkfitnesslife.com. Start recreating your life today.